The website Discogs is an online haven for record collectors, featuring probably the most extensive database of vinyl, CD and cassettes on the internet, as well as selling every type of record you can imagine, from extremely rare limited presses to the most common of common albums. And it's always interesting to look at what the most expensive records ever sold on a huge platform like this are. It's kind of interesting, I guess, to see what people are willing to pay for records and which artists are those which can command those extraordinary prices, which artists' records can be worth as much as a car. And for a long time, the highest seller on Discogs was a rare pressing of the New York hardcore punk band Judge's album called Chung King Can Suck It, with only one copy even, ever selling on the website for $6,048. However, a mere month later, after the passing of Prince, his incredibly rare Black Album, an album which was slated for release but was then shelved and loads of copies destroyed and copies recorded from DJs, etc., so very few exist, sold for an incredible $15,000. Now, one could expect that a rare first press, or signed by a beloved underground cult band, or unreleased music from a legend, could sell for an extraordinary amount. But then in March 22nd, 2017, a new record was broken for $18,000. The album was called 301 Jackson Street, an album released in 1989 by Billy Yeager. And this begged the question, who the heck is Billy Yeager? Upon googling Billy Yeager, you don't find much for someone whose record is collectible enough to garner $18,000. There is no Wikipedia page about him, there is a Discogs page, but that doesn't even mention 301 Jackson Street, funnily enough. And then there is an IMDb page for the film The Ineffable Enigma. Most of the articles about Yeager are speculating on his identity or wondering why his record commanded such a high price. However, a few days after Discogs announced this record, it was retracted and all mention of the sale deleted from the Discogs website. At first, they had seemed confident of the authenticity, with head of PR Jeffrey Smith explaining, "It's not our responsibility to verify that it's real people or if the seller is somehow affiliated with the buyer. We are a client-to-client company. The transaction happened, that's the end of our relationship, as long as the buyer and seller are happy." The whole thing was a hoax? So did Billy Yeager even exist? Was 301 Jackson Street even a real album? What was the purpose of this hoax? And who the heck orchestrated it? Well, this is the story of Billy Yeager, who is certainly real and has a very strange career full of publicity stunts and bizarre events. Now, if one visits Billy's website and clicks on the About page, we find him to be quite the prolific artist. Apparently he has over 2,600 recorded compositions. He jammed with the legendary bassist of Weather Report, Jaco Pastorius, often considered the greatest bassist of all time. He was discovered by Bruce Hornsby, and then in the 90s turned his attention to film, something which he continues pursuing to this day. So on the surface, it just reads like the story of a failed, ill-fated musician, someone who was close to having their dream in the palm of their hand, but ultimately, he just couldn't make it. But instead of moving on with his life, Billy would try and achieve the stardom he believed he deserved through any means, a journey that has continued to this day in a series of weird events. Billy Yeager was born in 1957 in Miami, raised by his mother, Gail Kennedy, and his father, Raymond Yeager, along with his two sisters. Yeager was only 6 when he taught himself how to play his father's homemade guitar, made out of an old dresser drawer, playing his first public performance at the age of only 8. Billy's career really began, though, in the early 80s when he became friends with Tommy Bolin, he was apparently with him the night he died, and Johnny Depp, playing in local bands as a guitar shredder. It was in 1983 that he got his first break with the release of What's It Gonna Take? Chuck Gregory of Columbia Records, after hearing only 3 songs, wanted to sign Yeager immediately for his new label HMS Records, but wanted him to simply be a guitar player. As a result, Billy rejected the offer since he wanted to be considered more of a singer-songwriter. He did release another album, Be My Valentine, in 1985, with Billy playing all the instruments, as well as the album 301 Jackson Street in 1989 on his Aunt Bunny Yeager's label. But then Billy stopped playing in the public or recording albums and secluded himself away until 1992. This was a fertile period for Billy, writing over 750 songs, and was eventually discovered by Grammy Award-winning artist Bruce Hornsby, who had been given a demo tape. Despite Hornsby's endorsement, Billy was rejected by label after label and switched his attention to filmmaking. So all of this sounds rather ordinary and rather unremarkable, so you may wonder why I'm bothering to make a documentary style video on this. Well, this is where the story really begins, and the strange myth of Billy Yeager becomes divorced from the real man. So this information I gave you came from Wikipedia, full disclosure. Now, Wikipedia is usually considered not a very reliable source because anyone can edit it. But go on Wikipedia and type in Billy Yeager's name. And you know what you're going to find? You're going to find absolutely nothing. Now, I didn't lie to you. This was a Wikipedia page. But it's a Wikipedia page on the Internet Wayback Machine that is archived because it's clearly been removed. So why would this page have been removed? And this is an incredibly detailed Wikipedia page. I mean, insanely detailed. More detailed than most of the most famous musicians you can possibly think of. There's no way anyone can know this much about Billy Yeager, aside from one man, and that's Billy Yeager himself. So how much truth is here and how many lies? We can be unsure, but based on other sources on the internet, there's a few things we can be fairly certain of, that the few albums mentioned do exist. So why do I believe Yeager constructed his own Wikipedia page? Well, because it follows a pattern of media deception, multiple identities, and weird stuff that began in 1995 and culminated in the film Jimmy's Story. In 1995, Billy Yeager, a white surfer dude looking guy, started impersonating the long-lost illegitimate son of Jimi Hendrix, calling himself Jimmy Story, claiming he was in possession of lost recordings from Hendrix named the Bolero Tapes. The hoax was elaborate, with Yeager dyeing his skin black with Rit clothes dye and dressing in a way a bit like Hendrix. The local media around Miami did pick up on the story, with it being featured on WSVN Channel 7 and appearing on the front cover of Fort Lauderdale's XS magazine. The tapes he fabricated, which were meant to be the Bolero Tapes, this was a project which was going to be one of Hendrix's final projects, never coming to fruition. But Yeager's were raw recordings on cassette, supposed to have been given to Jimmy from Jimmy Story's mother, Sunshine Story. The recordings, according to Yeager's website, were even given to Buddy Miles and Mitch Mitchell, the other two members of the Jimi Hendrix Experience, with Buddy allegedly saying, "Working as close to Jimmy as I did, I would have to say I know the Hendrix sound. If someone were to try to fake his music compositions, I would be the one who would know. This kid, son of his, whoever he is, the song Devil's Got a Sweater is definitely a Jimi Hendrix composition. There is no doubt in my mind." And Mitch Mitchell allegedly said, "Working with Jimmy, listening to him jam, rehearse, write music, I know if I hear a song that was composed by Hendrix, I can instantly tell from phrasing, chord structures, movements from bridge to chorus, etc. With regards to Jimmy's Story and his mother Sunshine, I do not know about, but I can tell you, these songs cannot be faked. Jimmy was working on music before he died called the Bolero Tapes. If this is the music and this is his son, from the musical standpoint, there is no question about it. You could fake a guitar, maybe a little of his voice, but lyrics and melody, it's not possible. And from what I hear, this kid is the real deal, and I would love to play with him. As I alluded to before, this story does indeed get rather strange. Now, I can find no other sources to authenticate these quotes, and they sound as fabricated as the Bolero Tapes themselves, which Yeager wrote and performed, though I believe I read somewhere that I'm not quite sure of the source, so I will say this more speculatively, that he got someone else to perform the vocals that sounded a bit like Hendrix. Now, this hoax was elaborate, but it never got national attention before being outed, well, by Billy himself, and as a fraud. Billy claims that the hoax was simply to ridicule the fascination and obsession people have with celebrities, as well as the sensationalist and often inaccurate media. And while this may have been one of Billy's aims to grant him this charitably, it also seems it was an attempt to revive his career, turning the story into a film and getting his music heard. The logic runs that if he could convince people that this was Hendrix that they were hearing, well, people are going to think it's good. People are going to listen to it and think, wow, and a great Hendrix lost tape. So when he turns around and says, no, this is me, Billy Yeager, then perhaps it'd fool enough people into checking out Billy Yeager's material. This was not the first time he tried impersonating someone, though, as he also apparently impersonated David Bowie for a series of concerts in small Florida towns with little success. And this is according to John F. Stacey of Broward, Palm Beach New Times. This story is without question odd. To go to such lengths to become a celebrity for fame and exposure of his music, or even just to critique the nature of being a celebrity itself, this was a lavish effort. But it wasn't his last. His latest film project is called The Ineffable Enigma, a documentary about Billy, including in its trailer alleged quotes from Prince saying Billy is the funkiest guitar player I've ever heard, and showing Yeager with a cigar box guitar. Any reviews of the album are so long-winded and so full of praise that they must have been written by Billy under an alias. His films and most of his posts are produced by a man named Chris von Weinberg, who again suspiciously posts like Billy would, even though the website of Yeager states that Billy has no online presence and cannot be contacted. Another account verifying Yeager's pattern of deception is from Franklin Fantini, an employee at a record store, who told the news outlet Spin that Yeager is notorious amongst the staff because of the calls and emails they regularly receive from people who are seeking Yeager's records or who want to inform the store about some new record-breaking Yeager sale. It's always via a different address and it's always via a different name. I guess I can't prove that it's him, Fantini said. He emails and says, hey, just so you know, there was this record set for this tape or record that was sold. Have you heard of this underground artist, Billy Yeager? Well, you should. Fantini continues, I've always emailed back and said, okay, this is Billy Yeager, right, that I'm corresponding with? And he never responds. As if Billy's story couldn't get any more extraordinary, he also claims to have made music that can cure Asperger's syndrome as well as heal people in like some form of Indian guru. You get some of those who claim they have music which can heal people. So how did he come up with this? Well, between 2002 and 2004 apparently, he conducted higher conscious wave frequency musical experiments, in his words, in the jungles of Costa Rica, and experimented with sacred geometric wave frequencies playing to monkeys. After Yeager became a filmmaker in 2011, he released a film called The Jesus of Malibu, in which Billy and his wife give away all their possessions and live a nomadic life in a trailer. The film was apparently filmed without a single other person, including camera crew. After release, there was a news story about a mysterious piano that had been left on Miami Biscayne Bay.
The mystery in Biscayne Bay is striking, as you can see there, a chord. Grand piano suddenly appeared on a sandbar. Question is, who put the 650-pound musical instrument there and why?
This caused a local sensation. Yeager claimed it was himself and his wife who put it there for a guerrilla art project, only to have the real artist come forward. Well, no, it wasn't an artist who came forward, it was a boy of 16.
The mystery of a world-famous piano bar that appeared in Biscayne Bay has been solved. Nick Harrington has come forward as the person responsible for leaving the baby grand piano on the sandbar. The 16-year-old says the piano was going to be part of a promotional video as part of his college application. He says the video was never shot.
This one on its own isn't too weird, but you may wonder how you could watch this film. Well, it only screens in the Mojave Desert at remote locations and also missile bases in Kansas. One must submit an application to watch it. Suffice to say, it has never been released on DVD. Billy has now begun releasing his music for public consumption once again on his store servejazzrecords.com, in which he sells his records for exorbitant prices. The Jimmy Story soundtrack is a mere $50,000, as well as his Zeppelin-like album, which I can't even begin to pronounce because the title looks to be in Greek characters, again for $50,000. Or for $100,000, his Pat Metheny and Lyle Mayer's Style album, of which an excerpt is available on YouTube, and I will leave a link in the description below because I don't want a copyright strike, therefore I can't play it. Yet, apparently all of this money goes to his wife's charity to help landmine victims. This is a difficult video to conclude. I guess in summary, I would describe Billy in a similar way to the way he describes himself in the documentary The Ineffable Enigma, though I drop the word ineffable and simply say that Billy is an enigma. His motives are uncertain and unclear. In some respects, he appears to be a man whose quest for musical recognition and fame, whose frustrations with the music industry have caused him to go to great lengths to be recognized as the genius he truly believes he is, whether that's becoming a nomad or dyeing his skin black. And Billy, if you listen to any of the very short excerpts of music available, is clearly not untalented. He can play guitar, though his production is often of a low home studio quality. And I'm sure back in the 80s he was a very capable guitarist and perhaps is still to this day. But so were many others who let go or pursued their musical outlets in healthier, more normal ways. And I don't think there is a moral from Billy's story to really be taken away, perhaps other than that fame and recognition aren't worth all they're cracked up to be. But then perhaps we're misinterpreting this enigma. Perhaps he is sincere and honest in his motives and intentions, that simply he wants to make music to help people with his healing geometric waves, or perhaps he wants to expose certain aspects of our culture for what they are. In summary, we'll never really know why Billy Yeager goes to the lengths he goes to, what his true aims and motivations are, what the purpose of his music and films serves, since he is after all a reclusive man who also happens to have a million different internet personalities. This has been TheAIbumMan, looking at the odd story of Billy Yeager, the Enigma. I hope you have enjoyed this video. Comment, rate, subscribe, and as usual, long live rock and roll.